All right, so we need to do just a couple more things to get our Minimap ready to go. So we need to select our Minimap camera under that player object. We're going to go to Add Component, and we're actually going to add a new script. So we can just click on New Script down here at the bottom, and we're going to call this Minimap Camera. And then we're going to click on Create and Add, and that's going to automatically attach that new script as a component to our Minimap camera. That's also going to put that new script in our root assets folder in the project panel. So on the left side of this project panel, you can just click Assets. That's going to take you to the root folder where our Minimap camera is currently located. We want to move this script into the Created Scripts folder. So in Assets here, you can open Resources, and then you can go down to the scripts folder and find that created scripts folder. And we're going to drag Minimap camera right into there. And that is important. If you don't do that, the check setup is not going to be able to find that script for you. Then what we're going to do is just go ahead and double click on the Minimap camera right in this little grayed out text field here. And that should launch Visual Studio for you, or whatever thing you're using to edit your scripts. And then a little bit on the wrong screen for me. So inside, this is what we're going to see. So we need to add not a lot of code to this, just enough to follow our player. So up at the top, we're going to click inside this first parentheses and then hit Enter to give ourselves a line of space. And then we're going to type transform player. And that's going to be the player's transform. We're going to get that in the start method by saying player equals transform.parent, because the player is the camera's parent object when we hit play, so we can just grab that right from our own transform. But we actually need to make our player or our camera no longer a child of player while the game is running. The reason for that is if the camera is a child of the player, then the camera is going to rotate when the player rotates, and we don't want that to happen from our Minimap. So what we're going to do is we're going to say transform dot set parent, and then in parentheses we're going to type the word null. And null is kind of like the same thing as saying none or empty or nothing. Null is basically programming's way of saying we want this value we want this thing to not have a value. So for setting our parent to nothing, that means that our camera will now not have a parent in the game, right? Then all we need to do is drop down into void update, where we're going to declare what is called a local variable. So this top line here, this top transform player, is what's called a variable, and it allows us to store information under the keyword player. And we're going to declare a variable inside a method that's only accessible within that method. So this thing is going to be declared inside update, so we can only use it if we're between these two brackets for update. And that variable is going to be called vector3 POS, or pause for position, and we're going to set that equal to player.position. So every update loop, or every update method that's called, which is once per frame. Our game runs at however many frames per second your computer can handle. So however many times per second your computer can do this, it's going to say, okay, the player's position is this pause variable now. We're going to set the Y value of pause, so the up and down direction, we're going to set that equal to 20, so we stay above the player. And then we're going to assign this position to our Minimap camera. So we're going to say transform.position equals pause. And so what that's going to do is basically say, okay, the player is at these X, Y, and Z coordinates, but we're going to set the Y value for us to 20 above that. So the player or the camera is going to be 20 units above our player, but the X and Z values of its position will be the same. So that basically guarantees that our camera is always going to be directly over top of our player. Once we have all of that, we can go ahead and hit save. And then we can head back to Unity, where we need to do one more little thing to make it so that we can use that Minimap in every scene. We're going to go up in the inspector, in the hierarchy first. Let's select the player game object, so that root game object, the very topmost object. We want to select player, and then in the inspector on the right side here, there's this button that says overrides. And if you click that, we can see, we have this plus Minimap canvas and plus Minimap camera. And then down at the bottom, we have these two buttons. So if we hit apply all, what that's going to do is add all these changes we just made that are the Minimap and the Minimap camera. And it's going to put that in every scene where we have the player object. So those are our level scenes or other base scenes. So we're going to hit apply all, and that's going to send those two new additions to all the scenes where we have our player. And that's it for this step. So once you've got all that done, your mini-map should now be working. You can go press play and walk around and see your mini-map kind of update with your players moving.